Alright, recently we just removed the cylinder head. We have the metal gasket that we need to keep in a, I'll actually keep the gasket, so bring those gaskets up to me when we're done. So, cylinder head. We've got two valves here, and if we're looking here, it's pretty obvious. One of these valves is going to be bigger than the other one. The intake valve is always larger than the exhaust valve, or there's always more intake valves. So sometimes in a car engine you might see 3 intake valves and 2 exhaust, or 2 intake and 1 exhaust, or if anything, if there's 4 valve engine, the intakes are always larger. Now the exhaust valve will always take more heat and more abuse. The intake valve is bringing in cold air and fuel. The exhaust valve is always exhausting, 700 to anywhere to a 900 degree exhaust. All right, so it's constantly passing by. Now we're going to take these out. This is a simple way to take exhaust valves out. This is not at all ever like on a car engine or larger style engines. They usually we have to use a valve spring compressor, but some of these small engines make it nice and easy on you. This is the mating surface here. We want to look for scoring and marks, and we can put this on a surface plate and actually reflatten this, okay, and get it all perfect again if we have to. So to take these exhaust valves out, we've got our rocker arms that press on them. We are going to take the valve, put your fingers on one side, and all we're going to do is press down the exhaust valve keeper and spring, and then there's one hole to slide it. You see how it's not an oblong hole. It slides out. So we've got the keeper, the spring, the valve's going to come out, and a lot of times we need to push the valve down and then up to get the seal. Alright, remember that if we didn't have a seal, oil would just pour down and into the cylinder. So when these seals do dry up and go bad, the engine tends to burn a lot of oil at startup because oil leaks in overnight. So this little seal is all we got, and you can imagine the hundreds of thousands, millions of times the valve travels up and down inside this to seal that. So keeper, spring, seal. Here comes the valve. When the valve comes out, notice we've got a valve seat. These seats can be pitted, and we can cut these with special carbide cutters, or they can be ground. This valve, right, we can actually grind the face of the valve here. We have an actual valve grinder, and everyone will participate in grinding a valve. Not this one, because if we kept grinding there'd be nothing left. Okay, this part of the valve is called the stem. The keeper locks on at the top. Okay, that can slide off. So we're going to keep all these parts in a Ziploc bag. So we will not remove the rocker arms on this. We're just going to leave it. So again, we're going to pop that off. We're going to press the valve slightly down, bring it back up, and we can get the seal off. And if we notice on these, sometimes engines will have a different spring for the exhaust and intake. These springs are of equal length. Usually we can measure them to see if they're worn out or not. We can actually put a caliper over them, or micrometer, and most of the time a caliper, and see if the length has changed. So once we get these off, we're going to put all these parts in a Ziploc bag so we don't lose them. Alright, we'll put the keepers, the seals, the valves, and now our cylinder head is a bare cylinder head. Obviously the plug isn't out, but you can see, look at how dark and black the exhaust port is, and look at how clean and nice the intake port is. So this seat will take a lot more abuse. You can actually see I can actually remove some carbon off there. And the only seal that we have in an engine, in a cylinder head, is metal to metal. So the valve angle of the face meets with the seat, and this angle is usually 45 degrees on a valve and 45 to 46 degrees on a seat. So 1 degree of interference. And we'll talk more about those exact details of geometry later. But this is how we're going to keep our cylinder head. Do not take the rocker arms off. We're just going to leave that as is. And we'll clean this up, make sure our surfaces are perfect.